Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Essex Members Virtual Forum, the latest in our long-running series. I'm Mike Smith, a board member. I'm going to be your host for this evening, and around the virtual table tonight, we have Chairman John Faragher, Deputy Chairman Peter Northfield, Treasurer Ian Patterson, Director of Cricket Ronnie Irani, and our chairman of Essex Cricket in the community, Pip George, and we have director of cricket, Dan Feist. I think that's everyone. I haven't missed anyone out. Good. So I think without further ado, I'll hand over to your chairman, John Faragher.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this. I was going to say mid-season, not quite mid-season forum, but we're sort of a few weeks off, but we thought this was a good time right now to get together with everybody, bring you up to date with exactly what's going on, answer some of the questions and concerns that you have there. What I also wanted to do, I wanted to start this evening off by getting the chairman of the EKIC, Essex Cricket in the Community, Mr. Pip George, who is with us tonight. He has recently chaired a group that has looked at the general governance of Essex County Cricket Club in line with some of the new requirements that have been published by Sport England and by the ECB. And so Pip willingly undertook the chairmanship of this group to look at our constitution. And you will see in your voting packs that have been arriving from today that we are requesting you to support a number of constitutional changes that we need to make to ensure that we are operating within the good governance guidelines that have been issued to all of the county cricket clubs. So I'm going to pass this over now to Pip. He's going to give you a very brief overview of the constitutional changes and how they impact on the governance of Essex County Cricket Club. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Pip George. Thank you, Pip.
Thank you very much, John. Good evening, everybody. As John says, in the pack that you have received or will be receiving in the next couple of days, you'll have an awful lot of information about the proposed changes. You'll find there a commentary on the changes, and I just want to give a little bit of background and highlight the main things that you'll find there just to help you when you go through it. So the background is that the County Partnership Agreement, or CPA, is the contract which determines the roles and funding distributions from the ECB to its county partners, like Essex, for the period from 2020 to 2024. And through the development of the CPA process, consultations with the counties identified a desire for greater standards and accountability across the game. And therefore, the ECB has developed a set of standards that fit within the CPA, to which all county cricket organisations, both first class and county boards, will be held accountable. The ECB's governance framework, as John said, was based on the Sport England Code of Governance, and it's designed to encourage progression from core standards to best practice. There are 3 levels of requirements: bronze, silver and gold. And Essex's executive board, as John mentioned, established what we called a governance working group in late 2019, which I was asked to chair. The group's objectives are to review the governance arrangements for Essex Cricket in the light of recommendations made by the ECB, including the framework, and to advise Essex and make recommendations on changes which we need to make in accordance with best practice in order to ensure that we are compliant with the CPA requirements. And the group, the governance working group, has carried out a thorough review of the rules and constitution in the light of the framework, and has made recommendations to the executive board and to the general committee. The proposed new constitution, which you have in the pack that was sent to you, incorporates the changes which are believed to be necessary and appropriate for Essex Cricket at this time, and they're unanimously recommended to the membership for approval by both the current General Committee and by the Governance Working Group. I won't go through it in detail, of course, but the key changes include the renaming of the General Committee to become a board, limitations on the terms of office of board members, and the establishment of new nominations and members committees. The main purpose of the nominations committee is to provide advice to the membership in electing a skills-based and diverse board to govern the club. The main purpose of the membership committee is to be a conduit for information and policy matters between the membership and the board. 3 members of the members committee will be directly elected by the membership, with the first postal ballot to be conducted soon after the AGM this year, assuming that the changes to the constitution are approved by the membership. And please also note that the board will select 1 of the 3 elected to the members committee to also serve on the nominations committee. So in conclusion, the General Committee and the Governance Working Group are anxious to ensure that any review of governance should be in line with Essex cricket's proud history and should seek to maintain our unique culture. We're anxious to ensure that a spirit of partnership should be maintained with the ECB at all times, so as not to jeopardise any future funding arrangements. And the proposed changes that we are putting forward have been seen and approved by the ECB. And the changes will, by the end of the transition period, enable Essex cricket to at least meet the ECB's silver requirements, including those for board diversity. John, that's all I felt I wanted to say.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Pip. So look, that is an overview of the constitutional changes that have been thoroughly reviewed and approved by your committee and by the board, by the executive board. So the purpose of this really is to bring it to your attention. Please look at the package that you have there. Look at it, try and understand. It's fairly detailed, but it's important that we actually are seen to be moving forward as a club. And the ECB expects us to be united in this. So I'm really asking from all of the members for their total support in adopting the changes to the constitution. So if there's any question that want to come up, or you want to make a direct contact either with Pip or with myself, then please do so. I think most of you have our email addresses, but I think when you've read it and you'll understand that what we're recommending is to ensure that we are operating as an expected first-class business organisation, which we are. I don't think there's too much more to add to that at this point. So what I'll do, I'll go back to my. The important thing, just please do remember from all of this, this is still and will always be, as far as I'm concerned, a members club. Okay, that we are not looking in any way, shape, or form to remove that. This is a members club. It will remain that way. That's why we're going to have the members, not a membership committee, a members committee, in which you, the members, will be well represented, and the members' views will be made known because the chairman of that group will be one of us. At the moment, Peter Northfield looks after membership as deputy chairman, but Peter is unfortunately standing down from committee this year, which is a great shame for us all. But whoever comes in as the deputy chairman behind Peter will assume that responsibility. So that is the assurance I can give you. This is and will continue to be a very strong members club. Right, so now I'll go back to Mike so we can start addressing some of the questions that have obviously been fed into you this afternoon, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, okay, well, we'll start off with the elephant in the room, which probably about 2/3 of the questions that have come in are around, and there's that many of them that I can't really read them all out here, otherwise it'll be all evening. But I can say that questions in from Tim Percival, Philip Boston, Roy Pilgrim, Mike Stringer, Stuart Walker, Chris Harvey, Barry Collins, Janine Degan, and Kevin Watts. And if I've missed you out, apologies. There are other questions on more specific topics later. But for now, what I'm going to do is hand over to Dan Feist, who is Director of Cricket Operations. And Dan has been working tirelessly with staff and authorities for months and months, it seems. On
yeah, I think we should point just quickly here, Mike, to make everybody aware that Dan, in his role as Director of Cricket Operations, but he's also our COVID expert for the club. So all the COVID meetings and problems, etc., etc., they have all landed very squarely on Dan's shoulders, and he's done an outstanding job in ensuring that this start to the season that we've had and the way we're going to continue is that at all times we do follow the COVID rules and our responsibilities to making sure that we operate safely. So that's an important point for people to understand why these questions are going to Dan, because he has the most unbelievable knowledge and detail down to the nth degree, so we can effectively answer most of those questions there. So sorry, Mike.
That's okay. And just to let you know, Dan's already seen these questions anyway. So what Dan's going to do is take you through all of the restrictions and everything to do with the COVID situation and the impacts on the club. And so should be able to cover off everything that you've asked. If anybody would still really want something specifically answered afterwards, then please feel free to email into the club and we'll get back to you. So over to you, Dan.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, John, as well. And good evening, everyone. And thanks for the opportunity for listening into how we've gone about trying to meet the COVID requirements set out by the government. And that's basically what I want to update you today, is the process we've gone through to get to the situation where we are currently within the ground and spectators coming to the ground. So at the start of the year, basically the DCMS, working with the professional sports right across and their chief medical officers, put together what was known as the Stage 5 Safe Return of Spectators as a process of hoping to build up to what we saw in May, when spectators were allowed to come back. At that point, no one was quite sure what time period that was, but there was obviously an inkling that was going to come around. That worked alongside what's known as the SGSA, which is the Sports Ground Safety Advisory Group, and they put together what was known as the SGO2, which is basically how to work out your capacity under a safe social distancing requirement coming through from this point. What then happened through the process is basically we worked with an architect that was appointed by the ECB, which is called AFL, and they looked at our ground and what was the likely requirements under SGO2. And these documents are available publicly. You can Google both the SGSA and the SGO2 and the DCMS site for Stage 5 Safe Return of Spectators that will outline all of the details that we've had to look at in terms of how we return fans to Cloud FM, County Ground and Chelmsford. What the process after that sort of going through and following on from the AFL report, which I'll highlight some of the words that came out of that report in a minute, is basically we had to then wait for Boris and the Prime Minister to give his okay for spectators to return. And obviously there were some pilot events going through that point. That then required the SGSA and SGO2 to be fully signed off for return for spectators to come back into the ground. That then required the ECB and the ICC with their medical teams to look at what was the requirements for players within those documents and the safe return of crowds under social distancing. That then needed to be passed on to our local authority. So we have a local authority SAG group, which is our safety advisory group, which is chaired by the Trading Standards, has Public Health England, has all representatives from the uniformed services and council members that sit on that group, and they have to provide us a certificate for us to enable us to have spectators back into the ground. As a ground, we normally only have to get a certificate for the Tom Pearce stand because of its requirements, but actually under COVID, we had to get a certificate for the whole ground to be provided that we could have spectators coming through. Those processes were taken back following the return of the AFL report, and that report, which was put together by, say, the architect paid by the ECB, looked at 4 key areas. Was the ground set up for behind closed doors, and actually how could it simply move from behind closed doors to potentially having spectators? Then looking at a 25% scenario, then looking at what we could do at 50% of spectators, and then looking what our maximum capacity could be post what we all know now is June the 21st, if that is the earliest date that we're able to have maximum capacity with no social distancing. The report, and I'm going to read the headline that came from the summary at the start to you, just so you can understand, and it's worth noting that we were highlighted under the report and by ECB as probably having the hardest ground in the country to have spectators come back to, because of the makeup of the ground. At the start of the report, as an executive summary, at Chelmsford, the ground has a number of major challenges in terms of player facilities and spectator circulation and support provision. The ground has numerous challenges in order to maximise capacities in 25% and 50% social distancing scenarios. Whilst it is likely that 25% scenario is achievable, albeit with careful social distance queue management and stewarding and placement of temporary toilet facilities, it is highly unlikely that a 50% capacity can be safely achieved due to the limitations of the ground. In the 50% scenario, there is a conflict requirement placed on the concourse areas, and certainly around our entrance and egress, with only having 2 gates to be used. Requirements for additional toilets, food and beverage, covered areas, queuing spaces, whilst maintaining social distances, almost make 50% impossible to achieve. Given that there is inadequate concourse areas around the back of the stands, this again requires us not to be able to meet 50% coming through. What that report, obviously, once it went to the STAG group, who is our local authority, highlighted that we were very limited on the spectators we could come through. One other thing that the report highlighted for us was that the Western home stand was to be totally taken out, apart from block 18 and block 24. The reason for this being that due to it only having a circa of 1.2 metres behind the stand, this was only sufficient for a one-way circulation, but the distance along the front being over 50 metres is not considered conducive to ensure a safe managed one-way system or circulation of staff along that point. So hence why you will see in the ground that we only use block 24 on that side and block 18, which will be used coming through. The 25% capacity worked out by AFL was 662 that we could use in the ground coming through that point. And that was known under SGO2 using a method 2 proposal, which is we can have 4 people per 10 square metres within the ground. And as you know, our concourses are very narrow around the back. That is the reason why we came up to the figure of, you've heard the figure of 600. And for day 1 of the Notts game, we will have up to 600. Up to is a key point because of the nature of where our sight screens are and the seating layout of our ground, which was highlighted in the report as well, that we have very narrow seats and very narrow depth of seats within it, which causes our problem. So again, you'd have seen that some grounds, they're able to use every row. Unfortunately, we can only use every other row due to the width of and depth of our seats we have at the ground currently. What the reason we had 200 at the start is, again, because we had to be signed off by the STAG group. They required us to have a pilot event, and they recommended and required us to have the Warwickshire as a full pilot event for 200 spectators that would go through. They have then agreed and recommended again that we have a pilot event for 600. So for the day 1 of the Notts game, we will have tomorrow, we will have 600, up to 600 spectators in the ground. We then return back to day 2 and 3 because we will need the SAG members who are coming tomorrow to fully sign us off to be able to stay at 600. What we have done since the last announcement around return of spectators generally is we've gone back to the SAG group and asked them to look at the SGO method 1, which allows us to have 10 persons for 10 square metres. And following the visit on tomorrow from the SAG committee member, who is actually the lead officer with the police force for tomorrow, we are then going to have a discussion to see if we can lift up to 800 people being in the ground. The concerns around that is obviously being T20 games, being essentially Friday nights and 7 o'clock starts, and obviously the potential of 800 people leaving the ground in the evening onto the local area. Because what we also have to do is take consideration into Zone X, which is the outside. So the city centre, demands on local transport, demands on local car parks, local provisions. For example, we've had to have a conversation with the station to make sure they're happy with all our fixture dates as we go through scenarios. Interestingly, and just to make you aware, looking at other capacities around the country, because I know that's been picked up, we'll be sitting at around 12 and 16% on our 600 and 800 people. Sussex are working at 800. They're hoping to be signed off for a few more, but they've had to bring in 1,500 temporary seats for that because they have space to be able to. Other grounds are working between 17 and 22%. So actually we are a similar percentage to what other grounds are working to, a similar size to us. So likes of Northants, Kent, Somerset and Leicester. They're all working at similar percentages to us. In answer to questions around the second 11, second 11 cricket and the women's Rachel Hayhoe Flint and Sunrisers games all come under elite cricket as outlined by the DCMS. That requires them to go under the same provisions and setup that we have in place for a game at the county ground taking place, whether it's England women or the Essex county first team. For us to do that, we would then have to put a full ticketing system in place, allocated seats, and full stewarding, toilet provision, and everything in place. And you can imagine potentially what the costs are. Hence why I know it was upsetting for some people this week, but we've taken the decision, like nearly all of the other counties, unless they're playing at their main ground, and they had it set up as a pilot, is to play all second 11 games behind closed doors until a point where social distancing is removed and we're able to open up those venues, because the setup for it and the costings and the requirement for those games to be played under elite provision is means that it's the most sensible decision for us as a business and for the game as well going forward. What obviously you'd have seen as well, and obviously my other role with the recreational game, recreational spectators were only allowed to return after May the 17th. Up until then, we've had no spectators in recreational cricket. So that's where it's led to some confusion, because some of the players cross over, but we have to link into what the government and DCMS say around, and ECB, for the requirements for elite sport under social distance guiding under the SGO2 provision. What is worth making you aware is that under the England women's games that we have coming, they fall under ICC requirements, which require us still to have a full distancing and safety requirements for the players. So for those two games, we have to go back to the current setup that we have for players' areas to fit, one, have the space for the two teams to be there, but most importantly, that they're able to come in a safe and social distancing manner around the ground. So, Mike, I hope that covers the majority of the questions. Like you say, I'm more than happy to receive any questions in the future. I hope that gives you some background to how we've come to where we are currently.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dan. That's a very thorough briefing on why we're operating the way we are, and I hope that actually addresses most of the concerns, if not all of the concerns, that have been raised by the membership in terms of why we've only got 200, why we've only got 600. First and foremost, I think, as Dan made very clear to everybody, we have to have the health and safety of everybody involved. That is, you, the members who wish to come into the ground, but also the staff and the players. And first and foremost, we have to make sure that everyone who's at the ground is safe. And we know under no circumstances will we do anything that puts anybody at risk. And I think you would all agree with me that that is the right way to operate. But it's a thank task that Dan is running for us there, because all he's open to is abuse and criticism from everybody, and he's taking it on his shoulders, and good job they're broad ones, because he has come under a lot of sort of stress trying to keep everybody happy on this, and I think he's done an outstanding job for the club as our COVID-19 representative, and he will continue to do that, and we have every faith in Dan that he will look after this club, and we will be guided as to what he advises. As he says, that we've got representatives from the SAG group coming down tomorrow. It'll be interesting to get their feedback afterwards. But we've got ourselves fully prepared as best we possibly can, and we are ready for the start of this game tomorrow. The ground looks excellent. It should be a great 4 days of cricket. And I think those people who are lucky enough to be coming in, and I feel deeply sorry for those who have missed out on the ballot. The ballot was the only fair way that we could actually get the people into the ground. But those people who are coming can come confident that they will be safe, and we are following all of the necessary government legal requirements for us to operate as a cricket ground. So thank you very much, Dan, and I'll go back now to Mike.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Thanks, John. There were quite a few queries coming in about the ballots and how it all worked, and seemed maybe a bit of a dark art to some people. So I'll answer a couple of things myself, actually, as I've got a few stats here. But John Clark had asked about how many members are registered. Firstly, that's 3,400. And I can say that we've had roughly 1,600 member ballot applications by post and online across all days. How the ballot has been carried out is there's been a randomized draw. And if anyone that is successful on one day is removed from the subsequent draw. And I do know that we've had something else in from Derek Smith talking about how maybe people have been encouraged to put a different lead member in an application. So there are stories going around about how people have managed to get tickets for more than one day. And I'm guessing that this is quite a difficult thing to administer, John. But it's one of the other criticisms coming from a few people as well is about how, maybe the communication side of things perhaps could have been a bit better. Some people not hearing whether they've got ticket or not. So, John, have you got anything you can comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think just answering that question, yes, I mean, one of the lessons we learned from the way the first ballot was handled was that we did say to people that, they would hear if whether or not they'd been lucky enough to draw tickets in the ballot, and there was an assumption taken that if you didn't hear, then you hadn't been successful. But okay, we recognise that perhaps we missed out there, and we should have actually taken the courtesy to go back to people who hadn't been fortunate. And this time round, we've covered that. So those people who have missed out on the ballot will have received an email from the club to say, sorry, you've missed out on the ballot this time round, etc. So we have addressed that one concern that came up from the first ballot. But other than that, I think that's covered all that, Mike. I mean, ballots are horrible things because there's always going to be a group of people who are very pleased and excited. And there's an awful lot of people who feel that they've been cheated and missed out. And unfortunately, that's what's happened in the current crisis, that we're desperately trying to drive the club through and drive it safely and successfully. But, it's inevitable there are going to be people who are disappointed and those who are happy. And I wish there was some easy solution to this. But while we have to work within the requirements, the legal requirements to operate the ground safely, there will be occasions when people are going to be disappointed. I wish we could control that, but we can't. And this is the fairest way that we can come up with in terms of giving everybody an opportunity to come and see at least one day's cricket. And I hope as many of those people that have missed out, I can only offer our apologies. But please understand that a lot of it is totally out of our control. Let's face it, we're all chartering into waters that we've never ever looked at before. And we are all learning as we go along as well. And I have to say, I think the staff here have done an absolutely outstanding job in sort of getting us through this whole pandemic crisis. And I think the way they've handled it, yes, mistakes have been made, of course they have. But when you're entering this kind of territory, it will happen. But overall, the club and the staff here have done an outstanding job in what are very, very difficult circumstances. But I hope that the answer to that question, from Dan and what Mike has just said, that's gone some ways so that everybody understands, the process that we had to follow, and then the process that we implemented to ensure that we get as many people as possible into the grounds to see the games. And let's hope, all we can really hope for on that one is that come the 21st of June, fingers crossed that the restrictions get lifted, and then we will be looking at the ways that we can take the numbers up, albeit we'll probably have social demand still put upon us. But whatever they are, we will work within the requirements, but we will certainly get back into the ground as soon as possible, as many people as we can, because that's what we want. There's nothing better than seeing a full Chelmsford, and the players want it as well. Let's not forget that. They find it very difficult playing in an empty ground where you just echo around, and it's not very inspiring, but they've done well. But we look forward to the day when we can get you all back safely into the ground. So leading on, Mike.
Okay. Dan, there were a couple of questions around stewarding. People are suggesting, because obviously they're aware of some of the costs that we're taking on board, and whether or not it would have been possible to get volunteers in. But I think you can probably answer that one.
Yeah, so I spoke to Danny Sadai, who's our match day supervisor today. We have to, and within the SAG requirements, we have to have the stewards to be fully trained around managing match day situations and crowd control. So as nice as it sounds, and yes, it would be great to have some volunteers, we have to have requirements of a certain level of stewarding available. So our stewards are done on 2 or 3 tiers. That we'll have an SIA steward who's fully trained, then we'll have the trained stewards around crowd management, and then there's senior person involved. We are having some house stewards come back into this game who you'll see on the Meteor Way, who I see as another question there. So Meteor Way will be open tomorrow. So there's some house stewards on that. Plus also you'll see the house stewards doing the ticket scanning, which is areas where we can use our own stewards. So there'll be a slight reduction on the number of the sort of outside agencies, but the requirement under our SAG is that we have to have them with a certain level of qualification to manage the crowd.
Thanks, Dan. A couple of questions. I'm not quite sure you covered it, Dan, before, but the first few T20 matches, do we know when the ballot is going to be done for that, and any estimate of the crowd size?
Well, so the ballots and that will come out through communication from Rowan and John in that office in terms of how to manage that process. Like I say, we are hoping, and as John reinforced, we have a couple of members from the SAG group coming tomorrow, specifically the police, to look at whether we can potentially go up to 800. Again, I say up to because it depends on the pitch allocation and usage of seats we have, but also on their requirements in terms of our concourse areas and that requirement on a Friday night, 800 people going out into the city centre from the game is one of the things they want us to look at how we manage. So we're hoping, like I say, we'll definitely be up to 600, and we hope we can get a conversation with the SAG tomorrow that we can take that up to 800. And once we have that information, we'll give that out to members as soon as possible.
Right, okay. There's also some questions around whether people who weren't successful in any of these ballots, whether they will get preferential treatment for T20 or even other future games. John, any view on that?
No, I mean, I think it's the ballot we operate as fairly as possible. So, for example, in the county championship, people who were successful are not included in the next round of it. So we're trying to make sure that everybody gets a chance to come in and see some cricket. We think that's the only fair way to make sure that everybody has that opportunity, and we'll continue to operate that way. If you've been in once, then you won't be in the second time, sort of thing. So I think that's the fairest way to. If anyone's got any other better ideas, but all I want to do is to make sure that we make the cricket available to as many of the members as possible. And I don't know of a better way to do it than the current system that we're operating.
Okay, thanks, John. Since we're talking cricket, and Ronnie has been sitting there patiently, we've got a couple of questions, Ronnie, the cricket side of things. So Mike Stringer's asked, how have the players found playing so many red ball matches back to back this season?
Yeah, they found it okay. We've got a good squad. Was it Mike Slinger? Was it Mike?
Mike Stringer.
Mike Stringer. So Mike, yeah, the players have found it, especially on the couple of flat pitches we played on, especially the bowlers found it sort of hard work. And as you've seen, quite a lot of the opposition tend to try and, I guess, work out a certain way of having a pitch to control our attack, one of a better phrase, with a short boundary on one side and pretty flat in the middle. So they found it good. I mean, I think they've had to focus on one aspect of the game, which is the 4 days. We know the skills on 4-day cricket are far different than they will be in T20 and 1 day, as that sort of speaks for itself. So I think it's worked. We always felt maybe early season, getting the championship games, why would you sacrifice a middle bit? But I guess the cash cow of T20 and other aspects of the game come into play when you expect the weather to be at its best. So I think overall it's been fine. It's worked out. We've played some good cricket. Obviously, we're looking in a decent position now. We could have played better. There's no doubt about that with the squad and what we expect as a group of players and our team and the performances. Yeah, absolutely, we could have done better. But I think we've sort of launched ourselves quite nicely to the position we're in, and hopefully we can finish off strong with these last couple of games within this group.
Okay. And from Ian Grimsley, what are the present situation regarding contracts beyond this year? And he's specifically talking about Alistair Cook, because at the last forum he noted that he was reportedly in discussion, Harmer and Tendo.
Simon Harmer's contract, I think, is signed till 2023 or 22. 23, John, isn't it?
He's signed through to the end of 22 next year.
End of 22, sorry, yeah. And we've been open negotiations for him to continue after that. So yeah, he's with us obviously this season, end of next season, currently under contract. So hopefully we'll be looking to extend that. Alistair Cook and who was the other one? Would it be Ryan Tendo-Scarter?
Tendo.
Yeah.
They're going to be having discussions with our head coach after this game. But we're hopefully positive that they're going to be with us for next season as well. But you know, we have obviously spoke to the players. We're keen to have them on board, but we'll have to wait and see really what the players want to do regarding their immediate future. They're coming towards the age of end of your career, and sometimes if it doesn't quite go well for you at a certain age, you start questioning things left, right, and centre. But for me, these guys are still good enough to play for a few more years. It's just whether they've got the desire themselves to want to do that and continue. I hope they do. But, you know, we've had discussions with them, and I think, you know, Anthony McGrath is going to speak to them after this game against Nottinghamshire, and then John, as our executive chairman currently, will touch base with all of them as well. So we're positive, we're hopeful, but, you know, Alistair Cook and Ryan Tendo-Scarter, when it comes to, you know, respecting their position and what they've done for the club, naturally, you know, we'll take a guide from them. We do need to make plans for next year now. You know, I've done that ever since I've got back involved this last 6 years. You know, you've got to plan ahead 12 months, maybe 18 months towards, you know, looking, I guess, the beginning of the season or the following summer coming up. And we do need to plan, and we'd like those guys on board. So it would be good to know from them as soon as possible. But we've got things in place, and we're certainly communicating with them, and we just need to sort of get an answer, hopefully, in the next few weeks, if we're being honest, John, isn't it?
Yeah, we will, yeah.
Great. Okay, thanks, Ronnie. Looking around the table, my screen here, Peter Northfield sitting up there, not said anything yet. So, Peter, I've got some questions for you, sort of membership-specific ones. One from Lee Gambardella. Not sure if I got that right, but apologies if I didn't get that. I thought the free tickets for members' friends and free meal for last year's members were great reward ideas. However, as they cannot be used, will they be carried over to next year? And are there any other planned rewards for members that remain loyal and renew again next year?
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I mean, if we can't fulfil what we were offering, then quite clearly that will be rolled over. And I have no doubt that a similar offer will be made next year, or at least that what was offered this year will be available next year. Who can say what might happen to membership next year? I mean, I think this could be something which the new members committee might very well have a very strong input in, you know, because it's just the sort of thing that we want the members to get involved with about how we can help to structure the business. But I wouldn't like to prejudge that or even have a guess at it at this stage.
Right, okay. Next question, Peter. From Tim Percival, I see that the women's T20 England against India is charging £20 a ticket. Why is this game not free to Essex members? I won't mention the comment about the standard of cricket, but surely the object of staging these matches is to get as many people watching as possible.
Well, I think Dan's probably already covered that. It's an ICC fixture. It costs us money to put it on. We will quite probably be on restricted crowds anyway. And actually, I think 20 quid to see two of the top three women's teams in the T20 is actually very, very good value. That would be my take on that. I'm sorry, Tim, if you don't agree, but that's your personal opinion. But actually, I think it's a good deal.
Right. Okay, moving on, because I'm conscious of time. There's still a few other subjects to get into and some other questions that have come in thick and fast. John, I think I'll send it over to you, John. Can I ask if any of this is from Tony Stern? Can I ask if any of the Essex board have taken pay cuts to help support the club, as we members have literally been expected to? Yeah, just without reading everything out, that's the.
I have to say, I mean, no member of the committee is paid for this role, so it's, you know, everyone here, you know, is a volunteer. So there are, you know, we have obviously the staff, but in terms of the majority or all of the elected committee, there's no one receiving a salary.
Pay cuts, that's a new one.
What?
Pay cuts, we're all going to get a pay cut, are we? Well, look forward to my first check.
Yeah, but you know, so yeah, that's the answer. Wow. None of the elected committee receive any kind of payment at all from the club.
No. Okay, I wanted that to make that clear. Okay, and from Brian Springall, it is assumed that all members of the General Committee attend almost every meeting. If a member fails to attend a consecutive number of meetings, can he/she be removed from the committee?
The answer to that is yes, but it's never happened because all of the people who stand for committee and are elected to committee are you know, as far as I'm concerned, first class members of the county, and they take on the role because they want to be committee people. And of course, you know, if someone is unable to attend through health reasons or something, then of course, you know, that is all taken into account. But in my time of serving on the committee, which has been a long time now, but I've never come across an instance where we've had to even consider removing somebody from committee because they've failed to attend without fair reason, but a number of consecutive meetings without providing any reason at all. So but yes, it's in the rules that you can dismiss people, but we've never had to do it, and I don't think going forward it'll ever happen because we are all responsible people who absolutely have the best, you know, the best at heart for Essex County Cricket Club. So it's not going to happen, but it is there if it should, but I don't see it ever happening.
No. Okay, thanks, John. Still with you, John, really, I think. CEO appointment. So we've had Ian Sutherland in Grimsley. What's the present situation with recruiting the new chief executive?
The final steps are underway. Interviews are being and have been conducted, and we're looking to make an appointment in the very near future. So we will keep everybody advised as to when that will be. I'm not going to give any dates or promises right now, but it won't be. It's not very far away.
Okay. Just a couple of comments that have come in about the streaming from a number of people, including Graham Dell, Mike Stringer, who generally been very, very positive comments on the streaming. John, do you want me to give a quick update on?
Yeah, please do.
Where we are with that? Yes, because the club have put quite a lot of investment into improving the quality of the technology that's there to support the streaming. ECB has also invested quite a lot to help enable all the counties to do some level of streaming, but ultimately the quality of what you see is largely down to each club and in their production. And I think I've seen a number of good plaudits for how we've been doing compared with a lot of the other counties, and certainly that although there are restrictions, what we can and can't do we as well have control over the media rights. So going forward, from what I can see, it's been successful, and I can't see any reason why it's not going to continue and even be developed further. I know that we've certainly got plans to improve that and other content that we're putting out to the members. John,
I mean, thanks, Mike. That's a good that's a very positive approach, and we've invested heavily actually this winter to ensure that the streamer Mike has worked closely with the communications team here at Essex. He's done a super job working with those guys, and just talking around the counties, we've received some good feedback, some very good feedback about the level of quality of our streaming business compared with some other counties. So I think we're right up there with the top in terms of streaming and the quality that we're pushing out to people. So well done to everybody involved in that. And thank you, Mike. It's an opportunity to say thank you, because you've worked, I know, tirelessly with the guys to make sure that we're actually delivering a quality service. So I'm very pleased with it.
Right. A few other questions that have been coming in. So a lot of these are still around actually, we've got a question from Kevin Mansell about the capacity of the ground for T20, who said he thought it was 6,000. Dan?
No, the new AFL report brings us in at the moment at just over 5,000.
Just over 5,000. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a number of comments as well about people who, why are we being restricted so much? Most of our age groups have had 2 jabs, etc., etc. But I think these are mostly comments.
Yeah, they are. I mean, that has to be. Dan has covered that well. We are following, the guidelines and instructions that we're obliged to do so, and and what we're not prepared to do is to sort of move away and go off and be our own if you like operational outfit which isn't operating within the guidelines. We can't afford to do that, and we never would. So as much as it frustrates the members, it frustrates me intensely that that we can't have people sitting in the open on top of the Tom Pearce stand and wherever. I agree, it seems absolutely crazy, but unfortunately we have to follow the guidelines that are laid down for stadiums and for sport. And as soon as we can, then yes, absolutely, we will have more people into the ground.
Yeah. Okay. Kevin Mansell's talking about 25% of the 5,000. I think Dan's already answered that about the restrictions on the percentages. And Mike Stringers also actually asked on the subject. So can you tell us which parts of the ground will be open for the Notts game, please?
Yes. So just gone on the 25% would be 1,200, but we can't do that. Like I say, we've lost a whole side of the ground because of the concourse area, and what you have to do under SGO2 is you have to work out your entrance and egress number, then you have to look at your concourse number, and it's the lowest number you have to take as your capacity, and that's why our capacity is at 600 and 800, hopefully, if we can get that through tomorrow. In terms of tomorrow, the Tom Pearce stand along the riverside to the scoreboard and block 18 will be used, as well as the Hayes close end of the ground round to block 24 in the county corner. And then the day 2 and 3 we're back to just the Hayes close and the county corner end of the ground.
Okay. Ronnie, something for you here from Phil and Robert Easty. It looks like Ravi Bopara's not played at all for Sussex this year. Any chance of him coming back to Essex?
Well, one, Ravi Bopara doesn't play red ball cricket anyway. Well, that's his choice. And it was, I guess, towards the end of the season when he was playing for us a couple of seasons back. And obviously we offered him a contract, which he declined, sadly. But he's moved on, and yeah, he's not played for Sussex because he doesn't want to play red ball cricket anymore. So I'm presuming he's going to be involved in playing with Sussex in the white ball cricket, which is coming up. So, and even if he's not, he's contracted to Sussex. So he's not one of our players anymore, unfortunately. So it is what it is. We just crack on. But yeah, thanks for the question.
Just something to clarify as well. David Williams, and I think someone else has been asking about the papers that are supporting the constitutional changes that haven't gone out as hard copy in the membership pack, but are available online. But they can also be requested. We will post out a copy to anyone on request. But John, have you got anything else to add on that?
No, not really. I mean, as I said at the beginning, we really want the membership to support us on this. These constitutional changes we have to have. If we're going to move forward and meet our CPA requirements with the ECB and etc. and also for good governance basis as well. We have these constitutional changes have to go through. So I'm really hoping that the membership is going to get behind this. And when we finish here tonight, they'll go and look at their packs and read up and, you know, put a vote in favour of the changes being unanimously supported by the board. But no, there's not really too much more to add to that, Mike.
No, okay. Once from Mick Wadham, I think I'll answer. It says, on the question of communications, why did it take the club 4 weeks into the season to update the Meet the Eagles pages on the club website to reflect the current squad? I mean, all I can say is, John, you know this, just how much pressure the marketing and communications team has been under.
I think, yes, I mean, I'm a pretty impatient guy when it comes to this sort of thing, but even I have to understand that, you know, what the pressure that's actually being put upon all of the staff here is something, you know, that we've not experienced before. And, you know, there is so much work going on here behind the scenes that people have outside the club will have no idea about, just how you know, hard and the long hours that people are putting in just for us to even stage these games and the one that's being played tomorrow. The workload is amazing. And so, yes, from time to time, certain things don't get done quite the speed we would all like. But unfortunately, that's what we're facing and we're battling with right now. And I have to say, as I said at the beginning, I think we've done a very good job at this. And so well done to everybody. But yes, you know, perhaps things have taken a bit longer and I apologise for that. But it's not through the you know, our wish or desire or laziness. It's because there is an extremely heavy workload being pushed through each and every member of the staff at the moment. So that's the open and honest answer that I can give you.
Right. Okay. Ronnie, another one for you here. From it's not a name here; it's just a number. 447.
Bit dodgy. Sounds a bit dodgy. That
does sound a bit dodgy, isn't it?
Dodgy, that, mate.
Okay, so I'm sorry if this has already been covered, but it hasn't. But any news on when Aaron Beard might be fit for first team action?
Aaron Beard has played a few second team games. He struggled with injury at the beginning of the season, and then he looked like he was good. He bowled well in a couple of games, and then his form's dipped a bit. So I'd say he's close. He's close, and I'm hoping he's going to be available certainly for the up and coming one-day games. It's a shame because obviously he did. He's come on beautifully, hasn't he, Aaron? And he's a fabulous cricketer. But unfortunately, sometimes I think it was a groin injury he had, and they're just hard to shake off. When it comes to that, it's been a tough start for him. But you know, there's a lot of cricket to go yet in all forms of the game. So hopefully he can get into our 4-day side fully fit and certainly be involved and do well in our 1-day setup in 50 overs as well as T20, all of it all the way through. So yeah, it's unfortunate. It's a good question of which, you know, does it take people to get back and get back fit? So sometimes it's getting back fit and doing well, and then sometimes once you are fit, performing at the optimum level. And you know, we need all our players to be you know, in that position for us to be successful and win games of cricket. And Aaron Beard's certainly on his way towards doing that. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, sooner rather than later, please, Aaron, if you're listening.
Okay, thanks, Ronnie. And a couple of people actually, one, Doug and Brenda Church, thanks for the Zoom update. They appreciate it. But they've asked about if there are still restrictions after the 21st of June, what's going to happen to those who've bought blast tickets? And Mark Byfield has also said this, if what's going to happen where more tickets have been sold, where the maximum number of seats are allowed, will any members get priority? Well,
that's you know, a difficult question. Obviously, if for any reason we sold the tickets post 21st of June, if for any reason we can't honour those, then there will obviously be, to the unlucky ones, we will obviously give a full refund. And so there will be a full refund policy in operation, but we will have to, and we are talking round now about in terms of, if we don't get the lift off, how we're going to handle it, because that will be, you can imagine the administrative workload in trying to sort out how we go about this and where do we, are people who've got tickets allocated to one particular area, are they guaranteed the seats and the others are going to have to suffer and have a refund? I mean, there's a number of things that we're working on right now as to how we're going to handle this. And that will need some careful planning, which we are doing at this very moment. So as we get more on that, and if it looks like things are going to change, we will obviously make sure that we keep the membership fully updated with our plans.
Okay. Right. Well, I think we're just coming up towards our end time, but I've got a comment from, it's not a question, from Lorna Piper. Actually, you said to ask off air to please thank everyone for their time. We're on air, so I've done it. Sad to hear that Peter Northfield is not standing again.
Well,
Must be related to Peter. Must be related to Peter. That
Yeah.
one, isn't it?
I tell you, not as sad as I am, because Peter's been an outstanding committee member in his time. He's been a super deputy chairman, and sure, we're going to miss Peter's sort of support, his knowledge, his encouragement, and his continual sense of good humour. Even in the darkest moments, he's able to see the bright side of things. So yeah, we're going to miss him, but I'll let Peter say a few words. I've said mine about him.
Thanks for that, John.
Well, but hold on a minute, John. You need to tell the truth first. Come on, we can't finish on that note.
I'm leaving because I'm too old. Basically, I've reached the magic 7-0, at which, under the current constitution, we have to go. So it's been a great honour serving this club for 13 years. Loved every minute of it. It's been stressful at times. It's been exhilarating at times, but I wouldn't have missed it. And thanks for all the support of all the members. Thank you very much.
Well done, Pete.
Peter.
Thank you.
Good effort, mate.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Well, look, we've reached the end point. I think probably it's worth me just saying, if anyone's still got things that they burning questions, or they felt like their questions weren't properly answered, please feel free to email in and I'll forward them straight on to John. But maybe, John, you could perhaps wrap up proceedings, I think.
Yeah, okay. I mean, as always, I think these forums are a great opportunity for us to get the Essex message fully across to all of the members. And I hope tonight you find that, you know, it's been informative. There's been a lot of talking from this side. I hope we've answered the questions that you put to us, and you accept that, you know, these are trying circumstances, right? Trying times for everybody here, but we are giving it our very best shot, and I think we're doing a good job, a very good job. In terms of the cricketing side, you know, we're excited. You know, we have a very energised team right now. We've had a couple of results that perhaps didn't go the way we would like them to have done, but you know, we're back there. We're back there in the fight. We're going to give out the couple of remaining games of the Red Bull before we decide who's going into Division 1. We'll give it our best shot, and we've every chance. You know, we've got a good side out tomorrow for the game against Notts. It's a game we really must win. Otherwise, we will be preying on some other results really going our way. But you know, the guys are out there. They're confident. They believe that was a good win we had last week, and we're ready for tomorrow. So for the rest of the season, we've got the 50 over competition coming up. We've got the T20. I think we're in the shout with all of the competitions, to be perfectly honest. I think come the end of the season, I don't think we're going to be too disappointed. What you can be guaranteed of is that we will always put out a very good performance, put on a good show, good entertaining cricket, and giving it our best. And that's the great thing about this club, and we should all be very proud of that. So yeah, challenges for the rest of the season. We can only hope that Boris is looking favourably down on cricket, and we can get the restrictions lifted, and we can get back to welcoming all of the members and our friends and supporters back into the ground, because we want that more than anything else. And we are working tirelessly behind the scenes to make sure that if that happens, we are fully prepared. But the ground is ready for you. So let's keep our fingers crossed, stay positive, and we'll come back to you. We'll organise another one of these in the sort of fairly near future. I want to keep you updated with any developments that occur, so you're right up to the minute with the very latest information. But thanks for your time tonight, everybody. The
John,
questions were good. Yeah,
I've got a stop press for you here, because talking about latest information, the hard-working support team have just let me know that regarding the T20 tickets and refund. There's a full refund and rollback policy online, and the link is on their confirmation email.
Right, good. Okay, thanks for that, Mike. So that's a nice bit of news to end with. But look, thanks everybody for tonight. Thank you, Mike, for hosting this. Thanks to the panel tonight, giving up an hour or so of their time tonight, which is their private time is in pretty short supply at the moment with all that's going on at the club. So thank you very much, everybody, for your help and support. And thank you to those members who have stayed loyal to us again this year. That just means an awful lot to us, because we strongly believe in, we are a members club. We respect and thank you for your loyalty and continued support. Please stay with us, because that's the way the future looks good. We've got some great talented players. The future for Essex cricket is looking strong. We just have to ride through this hurricane wave that's hitting everybody right now. Let's be honest, during this last year, 18 months, lots of people have suffered terribly through the pandemic, and it makes you realize when you hear what the suffering has been of certain people, it puts everything into perspective. So if any of our loyal members and supporters and friends have suffered, our thoughts and best wishes are with you all and to your families if you actually suffered some terrible heartache during this last 18 months. But let's hope we can soon put all this behind us and concentrate on taking the club forward. So thanks for your time tonight, everybody.